Good evening. My name is Mark Fowler, and I'm the Explorers Club Vice President of Conservation. In honor of World Wildlife Day, we at the Explorers Club would like to promote some of the issues and species vital to our world that we often do not talk about. Tonight, we will follow in wildlife tracks to learn more about some of the most elusive, overlooked, and underrepresented animals on our planet. You will hear firsthand from some fantastic people who work directly with species ranging from the Persian leopard to the takah. You will also learn about conservation-related issues like the extinction of species and wildlife trafficking. In the end, we hope these little insights into these species drive you to learn more about them and help promote the challenges that they face. For the Explorers Club members, be sure to join us afterwards to ask our presenters any questions you may have in our Zoom breakout rooms. A link will be sent to you during the program. Without further ado, let's start the night off with Jose Diaz Ferreira, and he is the curator of mammals of Lisbon Zoo in Portugal.
Through the Eyes of the Leopard is a project based on a photographic work to show the beauty of the natural and cultural heritage of the Caucasus ecoregion, to sensitize the public at regional and global level for the conservation of the Caucasian leopard and wildlife. The leopard is the flagship species for wildlife conservation in the Caucasus, but it is a critically endangered flagship. The recovery of this mighty cat requires transboundary cooperation across the Greater and the Lesser Caucasus and the support of local people and the international community. This project will support the common efforts by showing to a local and international public the beauty of the landscapes, the richness of the fauna and flora, and the wealth of cultural diversity of the Caucasus ecoregion by looking at the treasures of the Caucasus through the eyes of the leopard.
What you have been watching is part of a Mirpuri Foundation expedition that I've been involved with to try to bring awareness to the Persian leopard, to the beauty of the landscapes, and to the people that live there. My name is José Dias Ferreira, and I'm the mammal curator of Lisbon Zoo, and I've been working for zoos for over 20 years. I'm also the coordinator for the Persian leopard EP breeding program, and I'm in direct collaboration with IUCN Cat Specialist Group on the reintroduction of this subspecies in the Russian Caucasus. We would like to thank the Explorers Club for the opportunity of talking about this Mirpuri project during the World Wildlife Week. Now, to talk a little bit about the situation of the Persian leopard breeding program and the collaboration with the reintroduction project in the Caucasus. Brief history of the species. It was once present in all mountains and forests. In the 50s, it was almost extinct. In the 60s, 70s, it started the legal protection of the species, and some protected areas were implemented in the Soviet Union. And of course, they also had the Iranian source populations that were feeding the rest of the distribution of this subspecies. There was a redecline in the 1990s or 2000 by the uncontrolled prey and habitat exploitation. Now we have a question mark, because in 2010, that's when this collaboration started, and we don't know if it's going to be a turnaround or not, but we want to be optimistic about this situation. Some MOUs, so memorandums of understanding, were signed between several organizations, including the EASA Association of Zoos and Aquarium, IUCN, and the Ministry of Natural Resources of the Russian Federation. And the breeding program had to make some adjustments in order to be able to have enough animals, enough leopards, to be sent to a center that prepares leopards for reintroduction. So what we started to do in 2013 was to search for new holders, so new institutions interested in keeping Persian leopards in their collections, and 12 new institutions were joined the program. We formed new pairs. So we transferred several leopards between zoos in order to have a total of 30 breeding pairs, if you count with the existing breeding pairs. So to have an idea, in 2012, we had 85 leopards in 39 zoos. In December 2020, we had 114. Of course, more leopards, more breeding, more animals to be sent to the breeding station in Russia. This is just to have an idea of what the distribution of zoos with Persian leopard looks like in Europe. Every orange dot is an institution that keeps Persian leopards. Some of them have a breeding pair. And in 2012, this was the first main step. The breeding pair from Lisbon Zoo, which was considered the best breeding pair in Europe, was sent to a breeding center in Sochi, Russia, in order to start breeding animals in Russia and prepare animals for a possible reintroduction. 6 months after the arrival, the first 2 cubs were born from our pair, and we believe that this transfer also stimulated the breeding of another breeding pair that was being kept in the Sochi breeding center at that time. This is an aerial photo of the breeding pair. You can see several enclosures for breeding leopards, and also 4 enclosures, 1-hectare enclosures that are used to train leopards for release. So those animals have access to live prey in order to learn skills. So the cubs with their mothers have access to live prey, and the mothers usually teach the cubs how to hunt and avoid danger, of course. This is also some photos of what the center looks like, the perimeter fence, the entrance, and most important of all is the room with all the monitors that allow the keepers to keep Persian leopards without human contact, because these animals need to be kept without any human contact in order to avoid for them not to associate food with the presence of humans. A pedigree of the leopards kept in Sochi breeding center in Russia. So you can see the Zadig and Andrea, the breeding pair that came from Lisbon Zoo that bred several times, and a Lausanne Cherry that was another breeding pair kept since 2008 in this same center, and all the descendants. In 2016, there was the first reintroduction of this species in the Russian Caucasus. This is an image of Victoria being released. This is the daughter of the breeding pair from Lisbon Zoo. And then in 2018 and 2020, 2 other reintroductions occurred. A total of 10 leopards were released in the wild in 2 different reserves. One is the Caucasus Biosphere Reserve, and another one is Alanian National Park. This is in Russia and in Ossetia, North Ossetia. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Marcin Jamkowski. I've been fellow international of the club for 16 years. Currently, I serve the club as vice chairman of the Polish chapter of the club. By profession, I'm documentary filmmaker. 2 years ago, my film The River of Treasures premiered at the Explorers Club headquarters in New York, and it was the story about the successful underwater treasure hunt for 350 years old art masterpieces from the valuable collection of the Polish king. Last year I started a film project strongly connected with wildlife, named The Collection. It is the film project about an incredible zoological collection created in Poland 200 years ago. It was created by University of Warsaw, and for 2 centuries its collection has been provided with specimens by Polish explorers from all over the world. Birds from South America, butterflies, snakes, shrimps from Central and East Asia, insects from Africa, and thousands of mammals from all over the planet. Currently, there are approximately 7 million animal specimens in the vault. Among them, there are a few of the extinct species, animals that are not around us anymore, unfortunately. One of them is Tasmanian wolf. That strange animal, sometimes also called a Tasmanian tiger, once lived in Tasmania, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. It evolved approximately 2 million years ago and was pretty successful in its environment. Unfortunately, this shy nocturnal animal completely vanished from the stage of life in the 1930s, probably because of the human pressure. In Warsaw collection, there is 1 specimen of the Tasmanian wolf preserved. What is interesting is that it's so well preserved that one can make a full genetic analysis of its DNA. From one point of view, it's great that now we can use the museum specimen to make great science. And I'm 100% sure that this DNA sample will bring a lot of good things to the scientific community and to our understanding of nature. But from the other side, it's extremely sad to acknowledge that in our lifetime, so many species disappeared with no trace, leaving no offspring, but just dry fur in the museum collections.
Hi everybody, I'm Jim Knox. I've been a member of the Explorers Club since 2019, and I serve as the Curator of Education for Connecticut Spirits Zoo and the Connecticut Zoological Society. Today we're going to be exploring and updating on one of the rarest mammals in the world, the red wolf. We'll be looking at the conservation challenges and successes of this amazing species. The red wolf was known to American settlers in the 1700s and 1800s, and it was known to John James Audubon when he immortalized the animal in this painting. This animal is intermediate in size and inhabits between the gray wolf, its larger cousin, and the coyote, its much smaller cousin throughout the Americas. But this animal is a unique American original, a species confined to the Americas. If we look at the gold range map here for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, one thing stands out. That red area along the Gulf Coast of the U.S., that was the last stronghold of this species in the early 1970s. At the time, the animals were suffering from inbreeding, habitat loss, hunting, and hybridization with coyotes. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service rounded the last few remaining wild red wolves up and worked with American zoos to create a breeding program, the SSP, or Species Survival Plan, to raise a number of these animals and get them back in the wild. So looking at this species by the numbers, 3 stand out in particular. 20, the number of red wolves currently in the wild. 43, the number of institutions working to protect and bolster the number of red wolves. And 265, the number of red wolves surviving on the planet. That's not a big number. It's a precious number, and we need to do great things with that number. But we have an opportunity to learn from our past. As Marcin mentioned, we had an animal in the Southern Hemisphere, the analog of the red wolf, the Tasmanian wolf, and tragically, we lost that species too late. Conservation action came for the animal, but in the 11th hour. With the red wolf, we have an opportunity to reverse that, an opportunity to take these lessons from the past and provide a brighter future for the red wolf. And that brighter future comes to us from one individual, a citizen scientist in the state of Texas, who identified animals in his photographs in 2013 as something that was not quite a coyote, an animal that didn't fit into the landscape. What he did was he contacted two biologists at Michigan Tech and Princeton universities, sent them samples from two road-killed animals, and the results of that study were astounding. What they discovered was that these animals were neither coyote nor red wolf, but actually represented an unknown reservoir of hidden genetics for the red wolf. These animals were hiding in plain sight. Packs of these animals were roaming Galveston Island State Park in southern Texas along the Gulf Coast, and these animals had been isolated from the populations of coyotes on the mainland. What this provides for conservationists is hope and promise for increased conservation, robust conservation effort for this species. And that new hope is also bolstered by a recent court decision by a U.S. federal judge directing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to draft a plan as of today, March 1st, to get these animals back out in the wild. I want to thank you for your time devoted to the red wolf today. I ask that you please keep the red wolf in your conservation thoughts and actions today and every day. And I wish you a great World Wildlife Day.
I'm so happy to be invited today to play along with this distinguished orchestra. These guys are really old school, and there's so much wisdom you can hear from them, the real greats. We've got Carolina ground crickets, bush katydids, tree crickets, and a whole distinguished ensemble. I've learned a lot from many musicians I've played with. Humpback whales in Hawaii, nightingales in Berlin, lyrebirds in Australia, beluga whales in Russia. Oh, it's very loud over here. This is late August, this is insect time. This is a hydrophone, it's an underwater microphone. It picks up sound underwater, and there can be all kinds of creatures. A whole human interest in noise as music, technologies that make washes of sounds, distorted guitars, electronic instruments. It all comes back to this world of bug sound. Our whole biology and culture evolved in the presence of all this. That might got someone the idea to start having a rhythm and shake something. These layers of rhythms. One is going, another's going, and then the katydids are going, There were bugs on this planet long before there are these more complicated creatures like birds and us. So this is like some of the oldest music you'll ever hear. Bugs are our ever-distant ancestors. We're hearing some connection to the voice of the ancestors. The insects remind us where we came from.
Hello, my name is Gabriella Smith, and today I'm going to talk to you about how cognitive study can help save the gray parrot, Psittacus erythicus. So a bit about me, I got my bachelor's from Boston University in biology with a specialization in behavioral biology, and I went on to get my master's from Hunter College in animal behavior and conservation. And as you can see from the images, I've studied a wide variety of animals from cats and dogs to octopuses and gray parrots. And my dissertation at Hunter College was the presence and degree of contra-freeloading in gray parrots. So a little bit about the African gray. They are found in the equatorial forests of Western and Central Africa. Their habitat includes forest edges, clearings, gallery forests, mangroves, wooded savanna, cultivated areas, and gardens. They are unfortunately a CITES 1 species. This is due to the pet trade and the felling of trees where they breed, and in fact, they are considered extinct in some African countries. They are the most trafficked bird in the world, and about 1 out of 5 of them are removed from the wild every year. Experts are calling this the African silence. So where do I come in? I study animal cognition, and animal cognition is important in that humans often care about an animal if it exhibits similarities to themselves. And due to the work of my PI, Dr. Irene Pepperberg, and others, we have found that gray parrots exhibit cognition comparable to 5 to 6-year-old children, and sometimes exceed it. We have found that grays can understand classifications of objects, colors, shapes, sizes, quantities, and have a zero-like concept. They are capable of delayed gratification, or the marshmallow task, and they also understand exclusion, a highly advanced cognitive trait. We have also found that gray parrots have been observed to exhibit cognition beyond the human capability. This was found in a test that manipulated visual working memory. So what can we do? We can disseminate this cognition research. We can speak out against trafficking and habitat destruction. And if you're interested in getting a pet gray, please understand their cognitive emotional needs before doing so, and seek out a rescue or a breeder that is responsible and does not source from the wild. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
There are a lot of myths and mysteries surrounding bats, primarily because they're nocturnal, they fly, and are typically small, which makes them difficult to study and poorly known. But bats are actually beneficial, as I'll discuss shortly. However, first, a little bit about myself. My name is Burton Lim, and I received a PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology from the University of Toronto. Currently, I'm assistant curator at the Royal Ontario Museum. At less than 1 kilogram in weight, most mammals are small. Although many people know about larger species such as primates and carnivores, the rodents, bats, and shrews account for almost 3/4 of mammal species, and bats are the second most speciose order in this group. They are one of the most widely distributed mammals and occur on every continent, with the exception of Antarctica. I've been fortunate to be able to study them in about 30 countries throughout the world, mainly in tropical areas of South America and Southeast Asia. Bats are beneficial to the environment, providing many ecosystem services. They are good seed dispersers because bats always take fruits away from the parent tree. Bats also pollinate a lot of flowers, including cash crops such as banana, pictured in the upper right. And insectivorous bats eat agricultural pests, including moths, which consume and damage leaves in their earlier life stage as caterpillars. Some of the major conservation concerns associated with bats are habitat loss and human encroachment. In tropical countries like Suriname and South America, deforestation and clear-cutting from mining operations remove suitable roosting sites and trees, forcing some species to live in man-made structures such as buildings and homes. One of the research projects I'm working on started in 2011 and is an annual biodiversity monitoring project in Guyana in northern South America. We're establishing baseline data to detect trends in species diversity and relative abundance to get a better understanding of differences caused by either natural weather patterns or from human-induced climate change. Here you can see that there is quite a bit of background variation between lows in 2012 and highs in 2018. And my final example is research that got some recent media attention related to the current COVID-19 pandemic. Coronaviruses in bats are similar to SARS-like viruses that are deadly in humans, but bats are typically asymptomatic and appear healthy. Virologists have subsampled our bat frozen tissue collection at the ROM to screen for viruses and to get ahead of the curve to prepare vaccines for the next outbreak. Thanks for listening.
Hey everybody, I'm Scott Tregeser and I'm going to talk to you about some peculiar pangolins. A little bit about myself first. I'm a member of the IUCN Species Specialist Commission Pangolin Specialist Group, also a co-founder and director of the Creative Conservation Alliance, a nonprofit in Bangladesh that works to conserve pangolin among a lot of other things. I'm also executive director and president of the Biodiversity Group, a US-based nonprofit that conserves and helps other organizations conserve those charismatic microfauna like pangolin that we consider life overlooked. And I'm also a member of the Explorers Club since 2018 and a member of the International League of Conservation Photographers, so you'll be seeing a lot of my photos during this presentation. Who are pangolins more importantly? They're the only scaled mammal in the world. Their scales are made up of keratin, kind of like your fingernails. Their size, you can think about them as being about as big as a small to medium-sized dog, depending on the species. They're myrmecophagous, which is a big word for just eating ants and termites mostly, and they use their big, long, sticky tongue to do this. They're solitary, you don't see them in groups. They have pretty poor eyesight. Those cute little beady eyes can't see too far, but they have a great sense of smell that they can smell termites underground, and they can hear pretty well too. And there's 8 species of these. There's 4 in Asia and 4 in Africa. Here you can check out some of the ranges and pictures of the 8 species that we're talking about, the 4 in Asia, 4 in Africa. Look at the black-bellied pangolin, like the scales on that thing are incredible. And that's a smaller species, so it can be more arboreal than something like the giant pangolin, which is strictly terrestrial. And pangolins are so incredible. They can have a tongue that's longer than their entire body length, just so they can get as deep down as possible into that ant colony. Some of them have prehensile tails to help them climb trees like monkeys do. All of them roll into a defensive ball, just like the Pokemon rollout move, and a tiger can't even get through that. It's incredible. These scales are super hard. We actually know now that they're more related to cats and dogs and other carnivorans than they are to anything else, which is somewhat surprising. We used to think that they were related to anteaters in South America, obviously, but it turns out that that's a case of convergent evolution. They came to the same ecological niche through different means, just like bats and birds both evolved wings, but totally differently. They're also bioturbators, which means that they move around a lot of dirt. They dig their home burrows, they dig for ants. That makes homes for other animals. They dig up nutrients and cycle them through the forest, and they also can bury seeds and other things. So without them, the forest wouldn't look anything similar like it does now. And they also have no teeth. They couldn't bite you even if they wanted to. But if they roll up really quick and you're holding them, the scales can actually cut you, so you got to be careful with that. And although they can hold their own against a tiger, they simply can't hold their own against us. They roll up into a ball thinking they're safe, and they get put into a bag and taken to market. They're actually the single most trafficked mammal in the world. It's not rhino, it's not elephant, it's pangolin. That's because their meat is sold as a luxury dish in Asia, and their scales are sold for traditional Chinese medicine, much like rhino horn, but they're both made out of fingernails. And despite the fact that they don't have any medicinal quality, over 1 million of these have still been taken out of the wild in the last decade. That means 1 will die during this presentation. That is not a good situation. They only have 1 to 2 babies every 2 years. So we have a very unsustainable level of offtake, and all 8 species are now threatened because of this. 3 of them are critically endangered, which means they're 1 step away from being extinct. But hey, don't get too depressed, because we can change this. This story hasn't been written. Spread the word. People need to know that this is the single most important time in human history to act. What we do now will affect every single future human that will ever exist. Potentially millions of generations of humans will feel the effects of losing the integrity of entire ecosystems when we lose pangolins. That doesn't have to happen though. If we just donate $100 billion a year, it's not that much. Consider that we've donated over $400 billion just last year in the US alone. If we channel that into the right ways, we can save everything. We just have to change it. And it starts with you. Please, if you can, donate your time, tithe, or talent. If you have $10 to donate, send it to a wildlife conservation organization, a small one. That's going to be the most effective thing that $10 could ever do. All right, last thing I'm going to talk to you about is Burmese pythons to segue into the next presentation. I work with them too. I kind of work with everything scaly. They're threatened in their native range of Asia, just like pangolins are. They're threatened by things like habitat destruction, human-wildlife conflicts, and overcollection for the pet and the leather trade. Now, while they're beautiful to look at in the tank, and their leather is also beautiful, if you're going to buy these products, please make sure they're sustainably sourced. The collection of which is decimating populations throughout Asia, and we actually don't know that much about those populations. We know much more about the populations in southern Florida than we do in their entire range of Southeast Asia. Now, to remedy this, we went out with the Creative Conservation Alliance in northeast Bangladesh to study them. We studied 10 pythons over the course of 6 years to better understand how they use their environment and how we can better coexist with what are essentially the last apex predators of the region. Now, we've killed off tigers and we've killed off leopards and we've killed off bears in that region. So these are the last predators that can take down medium to large sized mammals. We all know that predators tend to go for the sick and the weak. And we all know now, we're very familiar that sick and weak animals can transfer diseases to humans. So ironically, this snake that most people don't appreciate is the last bastion in that region against the next pandemic. You'd think that would then warrant funding to conserve them and to protect that fragile ecosystem. But it's actually very difficult to try to find funding to conserve something that's not cute and fluffy. So there's this interesting dichotomy that I wanted to point out to you, that there's a very distinct scarcity of funding in Southeast Asia to conserve these animals that need to be, while there's an exponentially more funding being spent in Florida to eradicate them from a place that they should be eradicated from. Now, I wish we could conserve them better in Asia and perhaps something would change, but I'm going to ask you again to change your mindset and start caring for the underdogs, start caring for life overlooked. Now, if you found any of that interesting or you liked my photos, please follow me over at naturestills.com or on Instagram. If you want to know more about the work in Bangladesh, please go to conservationalliance.org. If you want to support Life Overlooked, which desperately needs it, go to biodiversitygroup.org. And if you want to check out a cool new initiative I'm on, then look at connectandconserve.org. Thanks for having me.
Hi there, my name is Kara Smith, co-owner of Inyala Wildlife Preserve along with my husband Donovan Smith. I've always been involved with animals since I was a little girl. At 5 I was hiding snakes under my bed, and that progressed into the veterinary field where I have 12 years combined working with well, I've always been involved with animals throughout my life. I have branched off and done a few other things. I began working with private jets, which was amazing, which led to a jet owner introducing me to yachting. Worked on super yachts for a bit and then jumped on a sport fish and did major blue marlin tournaments all throughout the Caribbean and Bermuda, and that was amazing. I ended up coming back landside, back to my passions of animals, and after the birth of my daughter, began working with venomous snakes. And it's become quite the endeavor, and I love educating people about them because they're highly misunderstood. Another passion of mine is doing photography with these guys. I put them in a light box and take their pictures. I have a website where I sell my prints, and I also love to draw. I do realism with colored pencils, and I do animals. Hi, here we have a Gabino viper. These guys are a naturally occurring hybrid that occur in Africa between a gaboon viper and a rhino viper. And it just goes to show you how absolutely stunningly beautiful venomous snakes can be. Hi there, this is Fred, and he is a albino Burmese python. He's a little different in that he's yellow and white compared to the regular black and gold and brown. We do have an invasive species problem here in the Florida Everglades. We live right on the edge of the Everglades here at our preserve, but we have not seen any babies or adults on our property yet. Burmese pythons in the wild originate out of southern and Southeast Asia, where they can grow up to 23 feet in length and be up to 200 pounds. Hurricane Andrew was deemed responsible, most likely, for the release of the pythons into the Everglades. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew devastated a python breeding facility, which released breeding animals and also escapees and released pets. Animals adapt to changes, and it's thought that these guys are starting to adapt to the cooler temperatures that our winter provides, and genetically they are becoming more robust in their ability to handle the cooler temperatures. In areas where pythons have established themselves, the native wildlife has been drastically affected as they're all fair game as a food source for the pythons. Our relatively stable seasons and temperatures also make for a great location, unlike in Asia where the snakes would be fasting and brumating during the winter season. Here in Florida, they feed continuously year-round. We do have occasional near freezing temps briefly, which does have a negative impact, having a mortality rate of up to 90%, but not really impacting the breeding populations enough to kill them off. Over 1,500 Burmese pythons have been removed from the Everglades, including viable eggs out of big nest sites and many babies and juveniles. Unfortunately, due to the vastness of the Everglades and their adaptability and their ecology, I unfortunately think they're here to stay.
Kuzu Zangbola, good health to you in Dzongkha, the national language of Bhutan. I hope you are all safe and well. My name is Tsewang Wangchuk, and I'm the Executive Director of the Bhutan Foundation, a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. and in Thimphu, Bhutan. Today, I will introduce you to the Bhutan Takin, the national animal of my country, Bhutan. One divine origination story that you will often hear in Bhutan relates to the 15th century Buddhist teacher Drukpa Khyentse, popularly known as the Divine Madman for his unorthodox methods of cutting through hypocrisy. So on his travels through western Bhutan, he is believed to have created the takin by putting together the skull of a goat to the body of a cow. And indeed, the takin looks like half goat, half cow, like a mixture of different animals put together. The 4 subspecies of takin recognized today are found in the localized region of Asia in the forests of northern Bhutan, northern India, northern Myanmar, and China. The IUCN has classified the takin as vulnerable. The Bhutan takin is distributed along the forested areas of some of the major river basins across northern Bhutan, largely inside protected areas and biological corridors. Even in areas outside the protected areas, takins receive adequate protection as a Schedule 1 animal under the Forest and Nature Conservation Act. Poaching has not really been recorded in the last few decades, and historically people from remote communities used to hunt the animal for meat, but of course not anymore. You'll notice the convex curvature of its snout and rump. It is a stocky animal, but it is able to traverse steep slopes with ease. It is a forest-dwelling browser feeding on a number of shrubs and forbs. They're seasonal migrants, gradually moving higher in the summer and then lower in the winter. On its summer range, we can sometimes see congregations of over 200 animals in one area. Summer is also its breeding season when they behave more like social animals. After the mating season, then as they descend to their winter habitat, they disband into smaller family units. However, it is not uncommon to see solitary bulls on both the summer and winter range. The takins have a special affinity towards mineral lakes and mineral springs. In summer, they will ascend up to the subalpine forest and the open areas above them, such as this valley called Tsarijatang Valley, located at 4,000 meters. In the valley floor is a mud flat that is the daily haunt of the takin. Apparently, the minerals in the lakes and springs are an important part of their diet. This valley is also home to several hundred yaks in winter. Through an agreement between the national park and the herders, the livestock will not enter the valley until well after the takins have left the valley. So from April to August, this area is vacated for the takins. And this is good, as takins are otherwise easily spooked by the presence of humans, horses, and dogs. In the summer habitat, there are other wild ungulates such as the blue sheep. Both the takin and blue sheep are goat antelopes. Because the takin inhabits such a wide range of habitat types, they have to contend with a host of predators. The Bengal tiger is the largest of them all, and in Bhutan, most of these predators, such as tiger, black bear, and Asiatic wild dogs, can be found at fairly high elevations. In the mountains, you have snow leopards, and then in the lower areas, you have to contend with leopards. But it is not just predators that takins have to contend with. This new calf was stranded in the middle of a gushing stream and separated from its mother and the rest of the herd. Our team rescued this little animal and reunited it with its mother. The culprit was a feral dog. Packs of dogs have been known to attack takin calves, blue sheep, cattle, and sometimes even humans. This is slowly becoming a menace in our mountains. There are many factors contributing to this, including tour groups giving leftover food to stray dogs who then follow them along on their treks. Disease jumping over from livestock and infrastructure development that may disrupt the migration corridor for the takins are some other threats to consider. With only under 1,000 Bhutan takin any outbreak of a debilitating disease carry the risk of decimating Bhutan's national animal. So this was a brief introduction to the Bhutan Takin, the national animal of Bhutan. I welcome you to visit Bhutan to come and see these magnificent animals. If you'd like more information on anything I've covered today, please reach out to me at the email that I've put up here. You can also learn more about the Bhutan Foundation through our website. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Hayes and I'm going to talk to you about a really cool fish called the sturgeon. There are 27 species of sturgeon on the planet, and there are 27 species of sturgeon struggling to stay on this planet. I live on the St. Lawrence River and we have a really cool species out here called the lake sturgeon, Acoustic fulvescens. And it was a part of my graduate research, and I've stayed involved in their conservation with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York Power Authority, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So I'm going to take you underwater into the world of the sturgeon in our St. Lawrence River. Enjoy. Once I locate a group of sturgeon, I will settle in a few feet away and just wait, observe, and watch. Okay, I'm gonna confess, I'm obsessed with sturgeon. They're one of the coolest species of fish on this planet. They're called the dinosaur fish because they swam through the mass extinctions that killed most of their aquatic colleagues. It's my time on the bottom of the St. Lawrence with a dinosaur fish. How rare is this? There are 27 species of sturgeon, and 27 species of sturgeon are in dire trouble. Sturgeon have complicated sex lives. They may not mature until they're at least 25 years of age and then not spawn every year. They may spawn every 5 years. But when they do, it sounds like thunder. It's incredible. Every year I look forward to this. We also collect eggs and sperm without injuring the fish, and the fertilized eggs are taken to a hatchery where they will grow from June to October into fingerlings. And the fingerlings are released, and it is amazing to watch these dinosaur fish released into their future.
This is Walter, our white rhinoceros, here at Inyala Wildlife Preserve. And I'm Donovan Smith, founder and creator of Inyala Wildlife Preserve and co-owner with my wife, Kara Smith. And this is Walter, our white rhinoceros. Good boy. Walter, sit. Good boy, Walter. Good boy. He's a good boy. I got a turtle for my 7th birthday and went from there. I've been working with animals all my life. I just turned 50, so I don't remember what it's like to not have animals in my life. Even our dog here, Ember, he's a Belgian Malinois, and he's not even normal for lack of a better word, are you? I was inducted to the Explorers Club in 2002. I'm a member national. Over my lifetime, I've had the opportunity to handle and train all sorts of animals, including big cats, camels, elephants, hippopotamuses, rhinos, Gila monsters, birds of prey, zebras, and giraffe. You name it, and I've pretty much had experience with it. This is Hades the hyena. He's one of the many animals here at Inyala Wildlife Preserve. Hi, Hades. Hades, man. Hades. As you can see, hyenas, everyone knows hyenas as being wild and savage, but they can certainly be calm and gentle as well. He's one of his glamour shots. Hades. This is Hades the hyena, one of the many animals here at Inyala Wildlife Preserve. Hades, man! What's up, Hades? Hades, man! Hyenas are always depicted in Hollywood as menacing creatures. They can certainly be that, of course, but they also are quite social, and I find them to be one of the most intelligent creatures I have ever had experience with. Hyenas are a unique species, and they are not dogs and they are not cats. There's several different species of hyena. There's a spotted, the brown, the striped, and the aardwolf. Many people don't realize that hyenas are omnivores, meaning they eat both plants and meat. They are also scavengers, and they are quite efficient hunters. Female hyenas get much larger than the males. A female can weigh 150 pounds, and they have been known to live up to 40 years in captivity. Hyenas are matriarchal, meaning the female's in charge. One thing unique about hyenas is the females have a pseudopenis, and they have to be genetically DNA sexed to determine whether it's a male or a female. Hyenas also have a unique lope, and they knuckle crawl, which makes sense to get in and out of carcasses. They also know 17 different vocalizations.
Hi everyone, Robin Huffman here to share with you what the monkeys and apes of Africa taught me. After a 30-year career in corporate interior design, a volunteer trip to Africa in 2007 changed everything. Now I'm an artist and primate advocate who found her calling in a 12-ounce bundle of pure, potent nature. An orphaned baby monkey named Maasai, who I cared for at Ape Action Africa in Cameroon, sanctuary to almost 300 monkeys, gorillas, and chimps who are orphans of the bushmeat and pet trades. Primates became my mission. I've had the rare chance to live with and serve these remarkable beings. As caregiver for dozens of monkeys, I've experienced their transformative superpowers firsthand. With my primate paintings and stories, I want to show them as individuals who deserve our respect and protection. They're highly intelligent and sentient, and critical to the forests as seed dispersers and as prey for other wild animals. But they're under attack by us. Poaching, trafficking, deforestation, human encroachment. And not only in the wild and captivity, these evolved beings suffer as pets, performers, and research subjects. Scientists have even designed them to be born with diseases. Let me share some of the African monkeys and apes I've painted. Frida and Leonie are two patas monkeys I've raised. These ground dwellers are lean and leggy. In fact, the fastest running primate on Earth at 34 miles an hour. Except Leonie will never be the fastest. She lost a leg when a hunter shot her mother. This is Dylan, a young male mandrill. They're the world's largest monkey, and males the most colorful mammal. But their coloring is suppressed until they're the dominant male or vying to be. And my portrait of the audacious Maggie May, who I spent a year caring for. This is my painting of Sunshine, a baby baboon I raised. Baboons are more plentiful but smart and clever, so they're heavily persecuted as pests. Here we have Rocky the chimp at my Explorers Club art show in New York. Before she found sanctuary, she was on public display for 10 years, in the sun, a metal chain around her neck. And we have critically endangered gorilla, where my paintings started at the sanctuary. I get to use my art to help sanctuaries reinforce their mission. How lucky am I? Here's how you can help too. Thank you.
I don't know why people are so intrigued by the thought of discovering some otherworldly creature. In my opinion, we already have them here on Earth, in the form of octopuses, all the way down into the depths of the ocean. And I've been lucky enough to meet some, get to know them, and even raise them as my own. Even though octopuses evolved completely separately from us, they're here in their own right, and as alien as they seem, are more human-like, conscious, and interesting than you'd ever expect. My name is Adi Ken, and I'm a PhD candidate in marine biology at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, UCSD, studying coral reef ecology. My other interests include digital art, science communication, and animal husbandry. In my spare time, I help out at our experimental aquaria with feeding and cleaning tanks. For the past couple of years, I've been taking care of octopuses of the deep-sea species Octopus californicus, or North Pacific big eye octopus, which were collected from a trawl on a research vessel. Today, I'd like to tell you about them and more about octopuses in general. Octopuses have hundreds of millions of neurons. They can store short or long-term memories and even figure out how to use tools to their advantage. They have their own behaviors and personalities. To me, what's most surprising is that they hatch, grow, reproduce, and die all within less than a year, yet still achieve levels of intelligence that are said to be comparable to that of a human. Moreover, octopuses are typically solitary, and by the time they die, they can't transfer what they've learned to future generations like we do. Nevertheless, they manage to survive, despite having to acquire those skills and knowledge on their own all over again each time. One of my professors likes to say that if octopuses somehow lived for longer, they'd form their own societies and eventually take over the world. From my experience with them so far, I honestly agree. They're also capable of recognizing individual people, responding to facial expressions, and noticing changes in emotion. My octopuses act differently toward me than they do with strangers, and each of them has interacted with me in their own way. I'm still in awe that there can be any sort of bond between a human and these deep-sea creatures, who otherwise live thousands of meters apart and never would have encountered each other. While I know that most people can't relate, my octopuses are what dogs are to the average person, but imagine a dog that only lives for less than a year, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when they pass away. It helps me to think that although several of my pet octopuses are no longer alive, they're still contributing to science and our awareness about this species. I want to promote an appreciation for these animals among the general public. Maybe as humans, we should open our minds to the idea that other life forms can be just as sentient and important as us, in ways we may not yet understand, but nevertheless should respect.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Colby, and I'm a National Geographic explorer and a former U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service CITES policy specialist and wildlife trade law enforcement officer. I'm presently working independently, both studying the wildlife trade and doing conservation work to stop the spread of wildlife diseases and, in particular, trying to save frogs. And that's what I wanted to talk with you about today, was my work saving frogs in a place called Acoustic National Park, which is a cloud forest in northwestern Honduras. I started working there back in 2006, so well over a decade ago, when I learned about something called chytrid fungus, which is this awful fungal pandemic killing frogs to the point of extinction all around the world. And even though it was described in 1999, so we've known about this pandemic for over 20 years now, and it started long before that, we still haven't been able to stop it, which I find fascinating considering coronavirus and what's going on in the world today. And yet we have this pandemic that 20 years later, we're still battling, trying to save frogs from extinction. So in Honduras, at my field site, we have a lot of endangered species, but 3 in particular seem to be most likely to go extinct from this chytrid fungus, called the exquisite spike thumb frog, which is an incredible frog about the size of your fist with big little spikes on its thumb. Found nowhere else in the world but a few rivers on top of this mountain in Acoustic National Park. We also have its smaller cousin, the Casuco spike thumb frog, and our version of a red-eyed tree frog, which is the Casuco mossy red-eyed frog. And we, meaning myself and some partners at zoos in the United States and some other groups around the world, have created a research and rescue facility in Honduras called the Honduras Amphibian Rescue and Conservation Center, where together myself and my partners from Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium and the Detroit Zoo in particular are preparing to mount an intensive long-term effort to collect these frogs from Acoustic National Park before they die from chytrid fungus and start bringing them to this facility we've created in country where we're training local people and building more capacity to become involved firsthand in on-the-ground conservation, and hoping that, you know, year after year, if we can start fixing up these frogs, putting them back in the rainforest where they belong, that hopefully, eventually, we can help natural selection find animals that are resistant to this disease event and that can start to repopulate the environment as it should be. But we need to help prevent extinction in the meantime. So that's kind of the overall concept of the work that we do in Honduras. And, you know, people often ask, how can we help? What can we do? I mean, there's a lot of things ranging from just telling our stories, help spreading the word about this frog pandemic called chytrid fungus. A lot of it is spread by the international wildlife trade, which is another project I'm working on to address. So, you know, that involves things like the pets that we buy at the store or the food that we eat, and just becoming more educated and more aware about where these products come from, and making sure that we're doing things safely and sustainably. Personally, if you'd like to support the work that I do, I have a Patreon account, which is a crowdfunding account online. At my username is myfrogcroaked, and this is how I'm able to support the time that I dedicate towards these efforts, is through crowdfunding. Because otherwise, you know, it's difficult to find finances to support the work that I love to do. But yeah, you can also check out, we have a lot of social media material. I'm very active on social media, sharing science communication about these events and these species. So if you look me up, I would love to have you follow along. Thanks.
What you're seeing here in front of you now is the first pictures of Okapi in its natural habitat taken through camera traps. This is the typical habitat of an Okapi. They eat about 100 different species of leaves, and so they just go from one bush to another. People wonder about their camouflage and their stripes. Just watch this Okapi just go 15 feet off the camera and he disappears into the forest, and he's eating there. If you look up high, you can see the branches moving. So these animals, the camouflage of the stripes and coloration does really work for the rainforest. And this picture, if you look down low at the bottom of the screen, is the first footage ever of an Okapi calf in the wild. Females have a 14-month gestation, and the calf stays with its mother for about 1.5 years. So this is the first. That baby is about 4 months old following its mother. Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoy those videos of Okapi in the wild. My name is John Lucas. I'm the founder and president of the Okapi Conservation Project. This project is started in 1987. Here I am then with the Mbuti pygmies, the smallest people on earth who share this habitat with Okapi. We have a long relationship with them. Here is many years later with Chief Zaire, one of the major chiefs of the pygmy tribes. And we work very closely with them because saving Okapi also saves their culture. The Okapi is a very unusual animal in Africa. It's the last large animal discovered. You can see the range in the heart of Africa, dead central. Stanley went through here, Livingston went through here, and you can see the habitat. So these animals were just impossible to see in the wild. So it wasn't until a skin came out, and they were only by a skin where they identified in 1901. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is the most biodiverse country in all of Africa. It is really unbelievable how much diversity of wildlife and plants are there in this country. And it's also a very wealthy country in minerals, but unfortunately, people live in dire poverty today. The Okapi is special to the people of the Congo, and we use this to leverage care for Okapi habitat for other species. They're on the symbol of the Institute in Congo for the Conservation of Nature, the government agency that protects wildlife. It's Radio Okapi is the largest news source in all of Congo. And on banknotes, and there's about 50 companies that have Okapi in their name. Using this leverage of Okapi being special to the government and the people, the Okapi Wildlife Reserve was created in 1992 and became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1996. This is 13,700 square kilometers, about 1.5 times the size of Yellowstone National Park. It not only protects Okapi, but the way of life, the Mbuti pygmies. The threats to this habitat are many. Illegal mining is being one of them, but also the insurgents. There's many militia groups that are heavily armed, and they are very destructive, and they just make effective conservation action almost impossible because we're always dealing with the presence of these people that are very dangerous. Besides the other threats, the infrastructure is extremely poor. The roads are very difficult to trespass. Our staff travels these roads continuously, mostly on motorcycle, but occasionally on truck. Bridges regularly collapse with overloaded timber trucks, as you can see in the corner of the screen. Our response to these threats is basically around supporting the rangers, looking for food security for the people who have a way not to have to be involved in illegal activities, support a women's group, and of course, the education of the next generation who will be responsible for these resources. One of the most important things, we have a reforestation project. We have 5 nurseries that produce trees. They're given away to people around the reserve. And we usually plant between 70,000 to 80,000 trees a year. The school children are very helpful in these because they help reforest abandoned lands so we can establish corridors for wildlife. The Ebola epidemic was the real first thing to hit Congo, and they had hand washing stations everywhere. When COVID came, these stations remained in place. We support 5 women's group, and most of the time they made school uniforms and other garments, but they transferred their skills to making masks for the people. And so they make a lot of masks that are given away to different people around the villages. And COVID has really been under control in the Congo, unlike the United States. The camera trap videos you saw at the beginning are possible because of our camera trap team. We call it Team Okapi. And these are the people that set the camera traps and monitor them. Because it's dangerous, we have 3 rangers here that are armed that are part of our team. So to help us, to support any of our programs, you can go to our website. All our programs are there. And if you have a specific interest, we'll gladly tell you and give you more information about it if you just ask. So thank you for your time.
Hi everyone, my name is Peter Kielty from Bees for All. I had hoped to show you around one of our bee yards today, but as you can see, Mother Nature had different ideas. We're in central Texas right now. We're in a historic snowstorm, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do. Basically what we do is we use beekeeping to introduce people into the world of pollinators and how much they need to be protected. What we refer to the honeybee as is a gateway bug, which means it's not truly in need of the same sort of protection as the native bees that we have here in this country and across the world. But because honeybees get the most attention and because they are sort of an interactive insect, one of the few insects that you can actually interact with in the form of beekeeping, we use that to get people excited about pollinators and also to educate them about the bees that are truly in need of protection, which are the native bees. You've got a whole variety of native bees worldwide, 20,000 species. It's staggering, and yet honeybees are really the only bee that people think of when you talk about bees. In this country alone, 1 in 4 species of bumblebee, for example, are endangered right now. And we just use beekeeping as a way to get people excited about pollinators, get them up close, interacting with these creatures, and we use that time we spend with them to not only educate them on what they can do, what practical actions they can take for pollinators, but also we create patches of native forage for these creatures, habitat where they can feed, they can nest, and they can find a little bit of sanctuary from pesticides. As far as conservation efforts go, I think protecting pollinators is it's one of the easiest ways for an individual to get involved. For example, if you're conserving whales or wolves, for example, you're talking about government level actions that need to be taken, either on a national or international scale. When it comes to pollinators, each individual can take direct action. No matter how small your piece of land is, you can make a huge difference by the simplest actions, providing forage, providing nesting habitat, and just getting rid of pesticides. 60% of land in the US is privately owned. So together we can make an enormous difference. And that's really the goal of what we try to do. Get each individual involved in taking direct actions to protect these creatures. And when you add all that up, it's pretty staggering what we can do when we work together.
Hello, my name is John Tanacredi. I'm a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences at Malloy College and a member of the Explorers Club, active member of the Explorers Club since 1992. I want to talk to you a little bit about a fairly special organism during this wildlife presentation this evening. And I've been involved with horseshoe crabs, specifically the one horseshoe crab. There's only 4 species of horseshoe crabs on Earth. The one in North America is called Limulus polyphemus, and I've been working with it for about 25, 30 years. I started in the National Park Service, and there are 4 basic aspects of horseshoe crabs that make them fairly significant, and actually one of the first and only species to be identified in these 4 categories and being suggested for World Heritage designation as the first World Heritage species. First and foremost, they're paleo survivors. They have been on Earth 445 million years, give or take a week or two. And in that time period, they've survived 5 mass extinction events. And from the standpoint of their survivability, these are animals who were crawling about under the legs of brontosauruses for as long as dinosaurs are on Earth, and these have survived, but they're in dire straits these days. And one of the reasons has to do with their important conservation strategy. Historically, horseshoe crabs were collected for bait. They're no longer, for fertilizer, but they're collected for bait today, and that's one of the pressures on these animals. But their conservation strategies are important. They give each female horseshoe crab each year, full moon and new moon, from May through August, put between 80 and 120,000 eggs per female into the estuaries. And at the same time, there's a synchrony of bird migrations, and millions of birds migrate along the East Coast and the Atlantic Flyway to feed on their eggs. So there's a major conservation importance, and those 2 things alone should be enough to preserve these animals forever. But the critical part today, and it's become even more prominent, is the fact that their blood, they're blue bloods, their blood is copper-based, and hemocyanin is the basic oxygen-carrying molecule for horseshoe crabs. Just like in our blood, it's hemoglobin, and ours turns red, theirs turns blue when it gets into the air. But the important part of it is Limulus amoebocyte lysate, which is an endotoxin detecting system that can determine bacterial contamination, very special bacterial contamination, gram-negative bacteria. And why that's so important, because it's a $435 million industry around the world for the 4 species of horseshoe crabs that exist on Earth, is that money is used to develop the LAL system, which is in every hospital around the world as an endotoxin detecting system, which means any kind of surgery, any kind of injectable drug has to be tested to make sure quality control, quality assurance that there's no bacterial contamination. And why that's important for the pandemic is that each and every single inoculation, the billions of inoculations that are going to be taking place over the next year or so or more, will have to be tested to make sure that there's no contamination. And this is what LAL does at this point. So another aspect of this in human health is that gram-negative bacteria, which is what they basically detect, getting into our septics, into our systems of respiratory or circulatory system, produces something called sepsis. And sepsis is a death sentence. 275,000 people in the United States alone each year die from sepsis. So LAL and horseshoe crabs have been critically important in helping in human health aspects since the 1970s, when the blood of the horseshoe crab was first isolated, the amoebocytes, and the whole idea of this animal providing this incredible public health assistance in this pandemic time. So it's a little short introduction to horseshoe crabs. If you have any interest, contact me at Malloy College at jtanacredi@malloy.edu. I'm the director of the Center for Environmental Research and Coastal Oceans Monitoring, which is our field station in West Sayville, Long Island. And if you're in a graduate school, or if you're in an undergraduate, or if you're just interested in horseshoe crabs, shoot me an email and we can chat at any time. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Andrea Crosta, and I'm the founder and executive director of Earth League International, the first intelligence agency for Earth. I'm also a fellow of the Explorers Club. About 10 years ago, I merged my two professional backgrounds in conservation and in security, intelligence, and high tech to create a new NGO capable of fighting environmental crime and international wildlife trafficking at the highest possible level, collecting intelligence on various illegal wildlife supply chains and on the convergence with other crimes such as money laundering or human smuggling, for example. We go after top international traffickers who are the real enablers, the real drivers behind the destruction of many species and many ecosystems around the world. My team members are former FBI and CIA, crime analysts, geospatial intelligence officers, undercover operatives, cybersecurity experts, and media professionals. In the past 5 years, we have been collecting information and producing intelligence on a variety of wildlife crime-related issues in Asia, Africa, North and South America, and Europe. Our mission includes also the support to government and law enforcement agencies that routinely receive from us a large amount of confidential information about the trafficking networks and the individuals involved in wildlife crime. During the past 3 years, we have been working on a wonderful and little-known animal called vaquita. It's a porpoise endemic of the Sea of Cortez in Baja California, Mexico, and sadly, it is now the rarest marine mammal in the world, with just maybe around a dozen vaquitas still surviving in the Sea of Cortez. The vaquita has been exterminated as bycatch in the illegal gill nets used to fish the totoaba, a large fish and also endemic of Baja California in Mexico. The totoaba is fished only for its swim bladder that is smuggled to China and sold on the black market for $30,000, $50,000 a piece and even more. We call it fake gold. The illegal fishing of totoaba and the international trafficking of its swim bladder is not just pushing the vaquita into extinction, but those illegal gill nets are also destroying an entire ecosystem in the Sea of Cortez. I saw with my eyes in those nets sharks and turtles and manta rays and even seabirds. They are killing machines, those nets. The trafficking of totoaba is driven and fueled by cartels made up of Mexican organized crime and even former narco traffickers working together with Chinese businessmen and traffickers who have been making millions of dollars from this illegal trade. And totoaba and other illegal seafood are not just smuggled to Asia, but also to the United States, that is now both transit and destination country for this product and many others, such as shark fins, for example. New strategies and actions focused on the international traffickers are crucial if we want to stop the destruction of the Sea of Cortez, that Jacques Cousteau once called the aquarium of the world, and maybe save the vaquita. And professional intelligence must be put at the center of the strategy to fight back for Earth.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be talking to you about an animal that you might not have even heard of before, which is the South Island takah, this remarkable purple and blue bird which is on your screen right now. For those of you who I don't know, my name's Joshua Powell. We've been asked to give a little introduction to ourselves to get us started. So I'm a conservation biologist. I'm currently doing a PhD on tiger conservation in Northeast Asia, but I was previously a Churchill Fellow to New Zealand on island conservation, and that's where this photograph was taken. Now, there are originally two takah species, one on New Zealand's North Island, one on New Zealand's South Island. Both were endemic, and the North Island takah sadly went extinct due to a combination of habitat loss and hunting. And the South Island takah had to contend with both of these
but also the introduction of invasive species, which both provided competition for food, in the case of deer, which were introduced by European settlers in the 19th century, but also introduced mammalian predators, things like stoats. And as a result, the takah became rarer and rarer, and it was actually thought to be extinct by 1898. No one saw one for the next 50 years. But then in 1948, a New Zealand doctor who believed that takah might still persist in some of the most remote parts of New Zealand's fjordland launched an expedition which successfully found a living takah population. This was considered a remarkable scientific discovery. And what followed was a really encouraging conservation program led by the Department of Conservation in New Zealand, who are really world leading. I've got a short video here of takah for you. And this was actually taken to the north of New Zealand, and that's because one of the techniques which was employed was conservation translocations, moving individual takah to remote offshore predator-free islands. And that was combined with a captive breeding program, as you can see on your screen in the video at the moment, which was breed for release, as well as targeted predator and invasive species eradications in Fiordland National Park, which was the takah's one remaining stronghold. These measures were so successful that the species has actually been downgraded. It's no longer considered critically endangered. It's moved down into the endangered category on the IUCN Red List. The population is up to about 450 as of last year, and it's growing at about 10% a year. And what this shows is the real value that scientific expeditions can have for conservation if they target the rediscovery of species or determining further information about species which we might know very little about. If you're looking for any inspiration, I can highly recommend checking out the ZSL Edge website. I've put the hyperlink on the screen, so you should be able to see that now. But I'm very happy to talk about species which might really benefit from some of these approaches. So I've left my email address on the screen, and please do feel free to be in touch. But I look forward to meeting many more of you during the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and happy World Wildlife Day. My name is Monique Sosnowski, and I'm a PhD student at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. In honor of World Wildlife Day, I will be chatting with you all about wildlife crime in the US. When most people hear wildlife crime, they think it's a pretty distant concept and that there's no way they could encounter it at work or home. But if you can answer yes to any of these questions, or know someone who could, then there might be a few things you could stick around to know. Do you have any exotic pets at home, like birds, lizards, or fish? Do you own any exotic leather fur or reptile skin handbags, shoes, belts, wallets, or jackets? Do you eat fish? Do you work at or ever shop at antique stores? Do you work for a company that uses shipping containers to transport materials, or for a bank processing individual or corporate transactions or investments? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you might be inadvertently enabling wildlife crime through purchasing the products of poaching, or by unintentionally facilitating smuggling or money laundering. Let's take a quick step back and define the issue we're hoping to tackle today. Simply put, wildlife crime is the illegal exploitation of flora and fauna. Worth an estimated $200 billion annually and involving tens of thousands of species, the illegal wildlife trade is amongst the top 4 most profitable global illicit enterprises, ranking alongside and often intertwined with the illicit trades in narcotics, arms, and humans. The wildlife trade involves species ranging from rhinos and elephants through birds, reptiles, and fish, as well as to plants and trees, and many of the other species discussed here today. It is also currently contributing to what many are referring to as the 6th mass extinction. Still not sure you could encounter wildlife products? Well, some of my recent work on the illegal wildlife imports into the US demonstrate just how close to home illegal wildlife products can be found. The luxury fashion industry, for example, is a big player, with brands such as Gucci, Chanel, and Coach having been implicated in the illegal trade. This means there are likely a number of illegal products on the shelves of major department stores and boutiques along New York City's own Fifth Avenue. So what does this all mean, and how can you do your part? First and foremost, think about what you're consuming. Not everything on the shelves of department stores or supermarkets has been legally caught. That's not to say that companies are intentionally selling illegally sourced or transported goods, but rather that products slip in through the cracks of existing supply chains. In that same vein, you can always opt for certified products, such as the seafood certified by the Marine Stewardship Council, or paper products that are Rainforest Alliance certified. These logos represent just a few certifications that you might be familiar with that do their part to prevent illegally or unsustainably harvested wildlife from entering global markets. Further, if you work at corporations, you can do your part to encourage your companies to operate responsibly using certified products or by ensuring their supply chains are wildlife-free. Lastly, if you suspect that anyone is selling illegal products or you encounter any related illegal activities, you can contact the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide a tip. And as always, educate others around you and be kind doing so. In doing any or all of these things, you could prevent wildlife crime from World Wildlife Day forward. Thank you and have a wonderful World Wildlife Day.
Thank you for joining us. What a wonderful evening. I know I learned a lot. For all the Explorers Club members that are going to stay for the Zoom breakout rooms, please join us after the program. And for everyone else, have a wonderful evening. And to take us out, we will hear from award-winning lyricist and composer Brian Estes' endangered species song called Animals of the World. Have a great evening.
Here's a shout out to all the endangered species out there fighting every day for their survival. Yeah. Something wrong, we're losing our humanity. 5 fancy speedboats just for our vanity. Driving too fast, run over a manatee. Insanity, a manatee calamity. Peace-loving aquatic mammal, swimming and frolicking in a channel. This tragedy is hard to handle. Another manatee snuffed out like a candle. Animals of the world unite now. Animals of the world unite. Tomorrow's too late, it's gotta be right now. Can't you see that the time is right? Out of the darkness and into the light now. Out of the darkness and into the light. Furry friends, it's time to fight now. Get off your furry little butts and fight. Amphibians are dying left and right. Amphibians are crying in the night. Not a living amphibian in my sight. I'm not an amphibian, but I know what's right. We're living in an amphibian oblivion. Yeah, that's the kind of oblivion we're living in. You might be willing to give up on amphibians, but I like amphibians. I ain't giving in. Animals of the world unite now. Animals of the world unite. Tomorrow's too late, it's gotta be right now. Can't you see that the time is right? Out of the darkness and into the light now. Out of the darkness and into the light. Furry friends, it's time to fight now. Get off your furry little butts and fight. We're losing our lemurs, gotta be the redeemers. Chinese river dolphin population dissolving. Little pygmy rabbit, a death so tragic. I'm filled with regret at the loss of an egret. I once knew a proboscis monkey. He had a big nose, but his rhymes were funky. Woodland caribou, what you gonna do? Humpback whale ain't returning his mail. There's an Asiatic lion, I'm afraid he's dying. I saw a macaw, was the last one I saw. Hairy-nosed wombat, locked in Mortal Kombat. Mexican bobcat, homie, where you at? Black-necked crane, living in pain. Say goodbye, I won't see you again. Gila monsters dying, I find myself crying. Save a sea lion, but nobody's trying. Bighorn sheep, man, you're in too deep, man. Probably save you, but we're too cheap, man. Pygmy slow loris disappearing from the forest. Galapagos tortoise, rigor mortis. Another bumblebee bat eaten by a cat. Help a hippo, man, cause the hippos are fat. Wild yak, won't be coming back. Japanese macaque is under attack. If you hurt a giant panda, I'll reprimand ya. Gorillas, chinchillas, gonna find your killers. Buffy-headed mama said, never tried to harm us yet. Canada lynx, hope it never extinct. Gonna tell marsupial mouse, if you lose your habitat, you can live in my house. Ice melts under polar bears, but we still burn oil like nobody cares. Another peregrine falcon, take it from me. Buy your pesticides and your DDT. Mexican prairie dog, who really can't spare your dog. Hawaiian goose, being cut loose. I'll have you on trial if you kill a crocodile. Come on, mountain zebra, you know that we need you. People of the world, see what you can do. If you want to see a rhino outside of a zoo, gotta change our ways, gotta see it through. Cause like it or not, we're animals too. Yeah, yeah. We're animals too. Animals of the world unite now. Animals of the world unite. Tomorrow's too late, it's gotta be right now. Can't you see that the time is right? Out of the darkness and into the light now. Out of the darkness and into the light. Furry friends, it's time to fight now. Get off your furry little butts and fight. Animals of the world unite now. Animals of the world unite. Tomorrow's too late, it's gotta be right now. Can't you see that the time is right? Out of the darkness and into the